Hello everyone, welcome to the LSI F1.5 EU Championship. We're today for the Italian Grand Prix here in Monza, and it is a little bit of a blunder right there from the current pole time sitter, Verth, who makes a mistake later on into the lap and will back off. They were just a little bit down heading into Ascari, but they messed it up a little bit as they went through it, and that will be them backing off. 5 minutes on the clock, they have more time to go again. Verth looking to try and get what would be their fourth pole this season, their fifth pole in a row, and their sixth career pole. That would be absolutely incredible. They currently match the likes of Slippery Sloth, Breezer, Giordi, Sixroy, Mr. RF4, but only behind one driver, which is Slippery Sloth, who has the record 6. Can Verth do that this season so far with, of course, 4 in a row, 3 this season? They're going to try and make it 5 in a row. It would be absolutely phenomenal. Someone who did have 100% win rate this season until last race in Singapore was this man Jericho Willis, losing out to the pole record holder so far. Unfortunately, having an incident at the start of the race last time around did mean that they dropped down the order. They went back up, then the safety car came out, and then they went all the way back down, but they did recover with a P4 and the fastest lap to help them in the championship. They currently sit there with 53 points to their name over 48, and that is 5 points ahead of Verth at the moment. It's still very, very close indeed. The other fastest laps so far this season have gone to Zora in the Netherlands and Austria. That was to Rare Winter, who was P3 in the championship, but they've been overtaken by their fellow countryman Bredescool, who has taken 2 P2s in a row despite their DNF first time around in Austria. They are definitely carrying a lot of momentum in their championship campaign. We've got the 3 higher tier drivers, Sir Maxon, Tom Robb and Charlie. Good to see Tom in a race this weekend at least. Charlie, of course, taking the win yesterday, a phenomenal victory, and Sir Maxon fighting for it hard as well. These guys are all going to be pretty quick. Now, I have been told that it is going to be either a full wet or an intermediate condition race the entire way through. So I think it's going to be a difficult one. It is going to be a very, very challenging one. But yeah, it's the way it's going to run, and we'll have to see what these guys have done setup-wise. That could definitely have a part in what we'll see for someone getting pole. It could change things massively. Whether people have gone for wet setups or not, I don't know. But it could be a bit of an interesting one regarding bugs in the game. Sometimes some people can see the weather icons for a session. Sometimes you can't see the weather icon, and it is more of a percentage thing, and you just have to try and use that percentage kind of data to really know if it's going to be raining or not. And not always is that really something that you can use. It's tough, but yeah, we'll see if people have read it right and have got things correct with their setup. Really sorry for the delay right there. That is Sorry, me trying to sort out some issues. That's how it's going to go. For now, that is Simaxon DSQing, and they will start at the back of the pack. It's Verth, who is currently on an outlap to try and defend this top time. We have Tom Robb, of course, on track. The only car that's on track, they go into the pit lane, but it is Verth, Jericho Willis. They'll be looking to set their improvement laps next. It's actually going to be Terence, though, who will start for the final time so far in qualifying. I will be right back as we finish this session. Alright, sorry for the delay right there. That is the lap done for Terence. What's it going to be? A P2 for their lap. It's going to be Jericho Willis next. Are they going to be able to compete for pole? It will not happen. It will not happen. It's Bredda's call. P6 to P6. They will stay where they are as they're not able to improve. And then it will be Rare Winter followed by Verth. Verth is currently standing on pole position by the smallest of margins ahead of their rival. Once again, Rare Winter is the only one that can break away this streak from the Sauber driver, from the Hungarian. The final corner, they're gonna use the grass a little bit. It's not exactly gonna be quick. It's gonna be a difficult one. If you're gonna touch the grass, they'll go P5, they'll go P4. It's Verth to try and improve, and they do so, setting another record right there. Absolutely incredible. And that is 4 poles in a row, 6 in their career. Verth takes it once again, Jericho in P2, and it's Terence in P3. Absolutely phenomenal. Terence loves this circuit, getting a P3 here last season as well. What can they do in the rain? We'll see you in a bit for the race start. The Italian rain is here. Who's going to get it? Ready? Hold. Go! Into turn one. Jericho Willis on the inside line, and it should surely be the advantage. Surely it should be. No! Verf gets a brilliant launch, and they will be able to hold on. They allow Terrence to go side by side with Jericho, but actually Jericho finds their way through. Verf goes off the circuit, and they're going to lose it in all of this. Terrence will make it to P2, and Verf the pole sitter down to P3. Rare Winter comes through as well. Absolutely incredible stuff. Jericho Willis keeping cool and did not give up. It's going to be Terrence who doesn't give up either, and they are going to go into P1 just for a moment. It's still side by side, and it's slippery on the rear, but they're through. Terrence leads once again in LSI, and it's going to be Rare Winter trying to go the long way around the championship leader. They'll go to the second Lesmo. There's a wheel bang or two, but they will not get it, and Verf is going to try and come back through as well. That's Tom Rob off in the background. That is a very, very interesting situation. But Terrence, in the meantime, 9/10 away from Jericho Willis. Absolutely checking out at the moment. Rare Winter sitting in that P3 spot. They hold on to the pole sitter, but on the exit of Ascari, it's not going to be quite so simple as Samaxon and Charlie are going to try and come through. Charlie already is up to P4, trying to just have a minimal impact in this race. Brothers Cool, P7. They've got a bit of work to do if they want to try and get through. That is Samaxon going through on Rare Winter. Not easy conditions to be in right now, but 1.9 seconds Terrence has to the rest of the field. An absolutely epic drive so far, and that is only the first lap. Verse stays behind Jericho Willis, and that is unfortunately Zora out of the race due to a technical difficulty that we do understand. So such a shame to see Zora out already, but they will not be able to complete this race, and that's going to be Jericho Willis, the inside line, as Verf will try and come through, and Verf will go through, holding on with all their might in these wet conditions. That was pretty brave indeed. They got the job done. It is now Charlie up next to try and make some progress. Tom Rob off earlier on. I don't know if they've got any damage, but they're trying to get the momentum. They didn't race here yesterday, so they're not going to have the same experience as the higher tier drivers do have, and that is maybe a track limit right there from the driver from Hong Kong, but Haas are going to be happy because they are leading by 1.6 seconds. Verf, however, has now got ahead of Jericho Willis. Jericho Willis was originally the car that was directly behind Terrence, but now Verf has managed to get away from their start troubles, and they are now set back in that P2 spot in clean air and trying to make some progress back into the lead of the Grand Prix. These two fought back in Singapore, and it looks like they're going to be fighting again. Jericho Willis sits in that P3 spot, and Charlie is trying to come through. They are currently the champion of Monza in the LSI F1 tier, as they got the victory yesterday. Not quite in the same conditions, but you know that they're going to be pretty good regardless, and they do make that P3 for now, trying to continue and have that minimum impact. Rare Winter on the inside line of Samaxon. They are going to go side by side. Rare Winter trying to squeeze it as much as they possibly can. Samaxon will have to leave the space, and they will just have to let things happen. It's going to be a drag race, but he does actually back off, and they let that go in the end. Rare Winter's got to be careful because they don't need to fight the current tier drivers. They're really just using resource. If they do fight them too hard, they can work together, as you see Jericho working together with Charlie. Of course, they didn't want to lose any time, and now they've got a car in between them and Verf, who seems to have a lot of pace, as that's once again more issues for Jericho Willis, who's just losing the car on the second Lesmo exit, and we could see that come into a bit of a troublesome situation later on in this Grand Prix when the tyres do start to wear off. Samaxon will go ahead of Rare Winter, and they'll go to P5 and try and hunt down the championship leader of this season. Last time around, it was Samaxon on pole as a current tier driver for the F1.5 EU tier. Now they're P5 after starting at the back due to being a higher tier driver and not being able to qualify. They're going to try and make some progress and find a way to catch up to their fellow countryman who is in that P3 spot. It's not going to be quite so simple, however. We will find out. 1.2 seconds now Verf has to Terrence as they put in a fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Terrence, though, still has hasn't seen a 1 second or sub 1 second gap since the start of this Grand Prix. An absolutely incredible first few laps. 1 second is still right there. It looks like it's going to close down as Verf continues to push on, and they do so as you see on your screens at the moment. But a brilliant first few laps, and he's definitely hoping that this is a 5-lap race, because then they could take the victory. But I don't think it's going to be so. I think it's going to be one of the longest races he's ever driven. He's in once again for the second week in a row a very good position, but in some of the most difficult conditions around a low downforce circuit where you just have absolutely no grip regardless. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be very tough, and you have to concentrate the entire way through. 45 minutes, maybe even 50 minutes this race is gonna be. It's gonna be a very difficult one. And of course we do have to remember that right now for Terence it is around about 3-4 a.m. that they are competing. It's absolutely incredible stuff that we're seeing from this driver week in, week out, and they are not giving up. That good result last time has definitely put a bit of fire in them, and they are trying to go again to see if they can get their second career victory in LSI. Verf 7/10 behind only now. They are close. Charlie, they've got a 1 second gap to the cars ahead. It is difficult to follow, but not for Sir Maxon, who will go through on their rival from last season and the championship leader of this season. And they're not going to be fighting at all. These guys have some pretty good camaraderie with one another, so they can work together quite nicely. We've got Rare Winter leading, Brothers Cool and Tom Robb just behind them. And these two are former teammates and looking to try and score some good points in this race. Of course, they've got two higher tier drivers directly in front of them, so they are currently running P4 and 5. If you take that into consideration, the top three for the current tier drivers is Terence, followed by Verf, and then Jericho Willis on the podium. They just have to work together with the higher tier drivers. The higher tier drivers will score wherever they finish. So Sir Maxon and Charlie, they won't get a 1-2. Currently, they are finishing P3 and 4. So they want to try, at least for their sake, to get to a high position, as high as possible as they can muster, but really they need to focus on just keeping out of trouble, and keeping out of trouble is not Terence right there, who makes a mistake for Ascari, and that was not good at all. Verf's not going to really think about any second invitations now. They're so close and they're ready to go for that move into turn 1, I'm sure. Whether Terence will try and defend it or not, I don't quite know, but that is the first sign of cracking, despite the pace disadvantage, of course, and it is going to be Verf trying to push for a move here on the battery. Not so easy. They are really giving it a good effort, and somehow Terence will stay ahead. A brilliant effort right there, defending on the battery. And that is job done for lap 6. And they should be able to stay ahead at least until the exit of the second Lesmo. That being said, Verf looks like they're pushing for it, and they are hoping to try and go side by side into the second chicane. I've got it completely wrong. The outside line is available for the Sauber, but the inside isn't. And Terence is going to take priority into the corner. And Verf will sensibly back off as it's lap 6 out of 27. On a full wet race. It's going to be a long one, and they really don't want to lose their front wing. That's the one thing that you don't want to be doing around a circuit like this with conditions like this. Another thing is time penalties. We do already see a time penalty for Tom Robb, but hopefully we don't get too many. As we saw yesterday, it did mix everything up absolutely massively. Charlie continuing to have some really good pace in this race, and they're looking to try and clear these guys if they can do. It could get very interesting. Will Verf try and use the higher tier drivers to their advantage? Will Terence try and use the higher tier drivers to their advantage? I don't quite know, but Charlie, they currently have 2 tenths behind. They've got to really be careful, because if they try and outbrake one car, they might hit the other. Verf pushing Terence to the limit as he's trying to hold on, but in that tow, it's a massive advantage. The outside line will be available. They back off and allow Terence to stay ahead, and everybody else will now bunch up because of that. They don't go for the move despite being in the tow. You don't get full advantage of the kind of slipstream effect, and that does mean it then bunches up everyone behind, but they go for it again at turn 3, and this time they're a bit more assertive, and they are going to make it work, and Terence will just have to let the position, go and sit in that P2 spot for now. They've got to try and hold on to that train if they can. As we saw, Verf was holding on really nicely. It seemed very, very powerful, sliding through the Lesmos as you see everybody going on the exit just a little bit sideways. Absolutely awesome to see on our screens right there. 5/10 is the gap to Verf. Charlie not able to make a move safely, so they didn't go for the move at all. It is exactly what they need to be doing, of course, and we'll see how this one goes. But that is the Sauber now leading the Grand Prix for the first time since the first corner, and Terence sitting in that P2 spot since the first lap. And it is Charlie trying to have a go, as now it is Samaxon really putting the pressure on the fellow higher tier driver, and they might actually get him on the traction, already go for the inside line. That is something that I did not expect to see. They're going to be trying to push each other to go for a move on one another. Actually they don't, and they just settle it between each other, and they allow Charlie to drop to P4, and Samaxon's now going to try and maybe have a look. But Jericho Willis right now can't find a way through because they can't go through. It's difficult enough in the wet conditions, and it's very difficult when you've got a higher tier driver who is not slow at all. So it's really difficult to make any progress. That being said, they probably don't really mind about not making too much progress on lap 8 out of 27. It's more of a different kind of strategy thing that you have to think about. That's what's going to really make the difference. And it's very, very difficult in wet conditions regarding strategy because no one really drives in wet conditions too much at all. So to figure out a strategy, it's a bit new and it's a bit unknown. Now, the tyres can wear a lot more in this game and in recent games compared to previous. You can go a long way on a wet compound of tyre, but it could possibly be the faster option to go into the pit lane. So that's something that we've got to really think about and look into, and it could mean that things change. It's going to be Charlie backing off to allow Jericho through. Charlie may be having an issue as they continue to slow down, and I don't know what's happening to the Williams car, but they are really pretty slow on circuit right now. They're going on the exit curb, and they almost lost it all, it looked like, but I think they probably didn't actually lose it all. It does mean that there's a big split with Jericho and Samaxon, which means there's now a 1.2 second gap that they've got to try and find, but Samaxon now has no pressure from behind. They didn't really have much pressure from behind at all anyway, so 8-10 7/10 gap is really not what they want to be looking at right now. We're going to have a move there for Tom Robb, who now is in P7 ahead of Brothers Cool and looking to try and make some progress in this race if they can do so. Now Jericho's got to hope that Verf and Terence bunch each other up a little bit and bunch Samaxon up as well so they can get back into that tow, because even though the tow's not really that much, it is going to be still an advantage. And you can also, I know this sounds very, very crazy, but in the F1 game you get less tyre wear. So you can save your tyres if you do stay behind another car nice and closely. I believe it's because if you're in a tow that you gain a lot more naturally. You don't have to gain in the corners, so you don't push the car as hard. I don't quite know if that is the true philosophy behind it, but it's in the game, and it's what we've got to try and work with. It's the way you've got to try and drive the car. There's a big old dry line forming where we could see intermediates being put on, because they are the faster tyres to use often in these kind of conditions. You could see Jericho Willis going offline on the straight to try and cool those tyres down. We're going to get Terence very close to the back of Verf. Would they go for the move into the first corner? They won't do so. It will allow Samaxon to bunch up. 1.5 seconds. Will Jericho be able to gain some time as the bunching up is occurring? Brothers Cool into the pit lane already. Will they go for the inters? They will go for the inters. So that's going to bring a big call out to everybody else, and now we could see a few pit stops happen with many drivers. Would they be able to go to the end on that tyre? I think they will, but they are going to be pretty old tyres, so these guys are going to continue to try and stay out. I think it's going to be maybe one or two more drivers to really go into the pit lane to make such an impact on everybody else going into the pit lane for fresh tyres. I don't know what they would want to be doing. Would you want to try and stay out for the late grip that will give you that advantage? I don't know, but you can see they're all diving to the left and the right to try and cool down those tyres offline. It's Verf who's very close to track limits right there. Lap 10, are they going to go into the pit lane as they start lap 11? It could be very possible. They pull to the left to use all of the wet that they can do, and now they're on the racing line into turn 11, and on the exit of the corner, will we see them pull to the right hand side? Will we see Terence pull to the right hand side? We will see not the Sauber go into the pit lane. Terence will stay behind as well in the tow. They can still get the advantage, and I think they're just trying to follow the race leader and keep it safe. I don't know. I really don't know what the thought process is. It's going to be pretty intense and difficult to manage right now. The top 5 are still very close together. Jericho Willis makes progress and catches up to Sir Max on Charlie. Needs a little bit more to get in that sub 1 second gap, but they are still pretty close regardless. Rare Winter 6.8 seconds behind. Tom Robb also going into the pit lane right now, and that is definitely going to make things very interesting, and we'll see possibly a few fastest laps coming in, and that is definitely going to change a few minds. If the laps are much quicker than the others, then they could start to cause a lot of people to go into that pit lane. It's going to be Tom Robb and Brothers Cool very close to one another, but Brothers Cool is going to have much warmer tyres and they're going to be good to go. Now Verf leads the way, they continue to do so. Jericho Willis is nice and close to the back of Sir Maxon, pulling to the inside of Sir Maxon to try and get a bit more temperature management on their tyres. They are 10 lap old, about to be 11 lap old, and nobody's going into the pit lane, but it is Terence, and it is going to be Terence into the pit lane, and now this could change everything. This could change everything. Verf is now completely open, completely vulnerable. Jericho Willis could lose it as well, or are they going to work together and stay out? Would they both try and stay out and get the advantage? Would they try and take a risk here? I don't quite know, but it's Rare Winter in as well. It is a big call, and we're going to see a few people in. Lap 12 out of 27 doesn't seem like a bad idea to go into the pit lane at this point, but once again, as I said, we could see maybe a few risks being taken, a few more laps on these tyres, and they could try and make it work. The mind games, the strategies on the pit stops is going to be absolutely crazy. Even though it's a wet condition race and you only get 2 compounds, it gets very, very difficult to manage and very, very difficult to think about when you're in these treacherous conditions. There is Verf moving to the inside line. They didn't go for the outside line. That would suggest they're not really caring about these tyres anymore, and they are going into the pit lane. Terence is going to get a really nice advantage here by going 1 lap under compared to everybody else, and Verf couldn't do anything about it because they already passed the pit lane by the time they saw that Terence was moving to the right hand side. And now Verf comes out the final corner. Surely they've got to make that call. Surely they've got to make that call. The right-hand side is calling. They are holding to the right, and they will go in. Sir Maxon's going to stay out, and Jericho Willis will do so as well. They're maybe going to go for the risk, and it could possibly pay off. What will we see right here? Final corner for Terence. They've got a long way to go. They should have the advantage, unless they haven't kept it clean. I don't quite know, but they're definitely going to have more temperature in that tyre, and they don't need to worry about cooling them down. They can go on the dry line all the way to the first corner. Where is Verf? There is Verf. There's turn 1, and it is going to be Terence into the lead of the Grand Prix once again, and Verf can't do anything about it. They will just have to sit back for now, and that is going to be a 1 second gap, and it will continue to be because Verf's put the wets on again. I do not believe it. I think they assumed that the game has put everybody on inters, so they don't need to worry about it. But no, the race winner from Singapore is once again on the wet compound tyre. Incorrect choices have been made, and now they're down. They're down. Definitely at the disadvantage point right now. Those tyres aren't too slow at all, and it is kind of wet conditions anyway, so they could still make it work, but it's definitely going to be slower. And all of a sudden, Terence is now going to have a 2-lap advantage on Jericho Willis, and a massive advantage advantage over Verf. Absolutely incredible stuff that I did not expect to see today, but Terence is going to be very happy with their decisions and their actions. We're going to see Sir Maxon staying out, and we're going to see Jericho Willis followed by Charlie into the pit lane, and now Jericho Willis is going to try and be in the mix with Terence. If not, Terence may have just broken away. Verf, definitely hats off to them. They're not losing that much time. Are they really going to bother going into the pit lane, or are they going to try and make these wet tyres work? I think they've got to try and make these tyres work, and they do so. That's the fastest lap right there for Terence. That's the left-hand side there for Verf to try and keep the temperature down in those tyres. They are going to be very difficult to manage. There is Jericho Willis, absolutely miles behind Terence, who's now got that 2-lap undercut. Is that 2-lap undercut going to be something that we have to look at later on? Because it could be. It very much could be. It could be puncture territory that we look at. I don't think it would, but there's a chance. There's a very, very little chance, and we do have to make sure that we're aware of it. That's going to be Jericho Willis being passed by Charlie, who actually, I didn't realise, has also been affected by this wet tyre thing. Now, I don't know if that is a misjudgment, because it could possibly be, but we have seen last game this be an actual bug within F1.23. Has the bug continued and put the drivers on the wrong tyres despite selecting the inters? They've been put on the wets. Absolutely disastrous if it has been the case, and really, really unfortunate and unfair. It's the way it goes sometimes in sim racing, but it does really make it very, very frustrating to compete with. Now, it could still be just a bad call. It does mean now Verf and Jericho Willis are very close together in their situation, of course. Bredders Core and Rare Winter are going to be happy with this because they'll be gaining. Terence is going to be very happy with this because they're now into P1 and by a bit of a margin as well, and they continue to extend. 2.2 seconds they now have. Sir Maxon still making their way out of the pit lane right now, and they are ahead of Charlie and Jericho Willis. They're going to have to get those tyres up to temperature, so Charlie has an opportunity to catch up here, but 2.6 seconds they've got to try and find to Verf. They can still do that, especially with the tyre situation that they have, but it's going to be about Bredders Core and Rare Winter catching up to Jericho Willis for that EU driver podium. Just to remind you of the situation, we currently have Sir Maxon, Charlie and Tom Rob as higher tier drivers. So for the current F1.5 EU Championship, it is Terence P1, Verf P2. Then we have Jericho Willis on the final step of the podium, followed by Bredders Call in 4th and 5th. That is what they're competing for right now. Maybe they could even compete for more, but Bredders Call and Ron Winter are being pulled along by Tom Rob, who is just ahead of them, and they're gonna try and make it possibly a podium, and Bredders Call could get their 3rd podium in 4 races. That would be absolutely incredible, and considering, or at least regarding the fact that they finished the race, they would take 100% podium rate as long as they don't DNF. That's a big moment right there for Rare Winter, and they cannot afford to do that again. They cannot afford to have an incident like that again, because it could be the end of their race if it goes slightly more wrong. And that's Bredders Call very close to the back of Tom Rob, and they're probably going to try and make it work here on the toe. 2 tenths that they have. Would they go in for the move into turn 1? Tom Rob's going to pull to the inside line, and he's going to back off and let the McLaren take the lead in the train, and they're going to get a nice advantage with that one, and they'll catch up to their fellow teammate. 3.0 seconds currently ahead at the moment. In the meantime, Sir Maxon made some progress on Verf, up ahead 1.6 seconds now. Charlie hasn't been able to find an answer to the Polish driver, the championship contender and the championship leader by 1 point in the LSI F1 tier. An absolute powerhouse, and they won the Singapore Grand Prix. Could they try and go for 2 in a row in F1.5? Would that be possible, or would they instead maybe just let things happen up in front? 2.6 seconds. I have to say, Verf is doing a very, very good job with the situation that they're in. They are doing a very good job, and they're currently on track to stay in that P2 spot. Charlie goes for the fastest lap, so taking away exactly what I said earlier on. I said they didn't have an answer to Sir Maxon. All of a sudden they do. Was that lag, or was that a mistake right there from Sir Maxon? The Racing Bull having a little moment, it looked like, but they are within 1 second of the Sauber, and they will be trying to make that move, I'm sure. They want to try and get ahead, and they've got about 10 and a bit laps to go of this race to do so. So they're not going to be worrying about time. They just want to cleanly pass the cars in front of them. So I think that into turn 1 will be their best bet, and it's going to be what they're looking for. They're going to use a bit of energy to get nice and close, and they'll try and hold on. Getting a good run and staying in the slipstream as they cool down their tyres does Verf. They just have to hold on behind. That is going to be Breda's Call and Rare Winter getting time penalties at exactly the same time right there. Whether that is a instant and unfair time penalty, I don't know. But it doesn't really look good for their race. Jericho Willis has to try and stay ahead. It is going to be Sir Maxon going through on the Sauber, and they're not going to fight each other. They're just going to let things go. And that is really, really difficult to see for Verf, who's doing their best. It's not over, and actually they're holding on a very nice pace to Terence up ahead. Whether Terence is backing off and trying to keep it nice and calm, I don't quite know, but it is really not over until it's over, and Verf is doing everything they need to do to keep themselves in this race. Now, 1.1 seconds, Sir Maxon breaks away from Verf almost immediately, and this tyre is really difficult to watch right now. We've got Jericho Willis, who has got Tom Robb directly behind them, and it doesn't really matter if Tom Robb goes ahead or behind Jericho Willis, because of course Tom is a higher tier driver. It does matter whether Breda's Call and Rare Winter make progress ahead of Jericho Willis. It also does make a difference whether their time penalties will affect things, of course, and it could definitely be a factor in this race. So Jericho Willis needs to try and allow Tom to go through, have minimal impact, and then hope that Breda's Call and Rare Winter can't break away despite them being on this tyre. And we'll get to see in the post-race interviews from the championship leader on what is going on with the tyre situation, of course, and that will probably be the same thing for Verf's situation as well. Currently, as it stands, it would be a 2-point gain for Verf in the championship, which would make the gap 3 points instead of 5. Jericho will still be the championship leader, but with 2 races not going the way they would have liked, it does mean that that gap is a lot smaller than it was before. Still, for McLaren though, the team's championship gap is absolutely huge, 37 points to Sauber. They would continue, I believe, to break away from Sauber, as unfortunately Texi is not able to make it to the race today. It would be great points for Haas, who are currently on 22 points, and they'll be able to jump Ferrari, and they'll be able to make some gains, maybe even overtake Red Bull. I'm not entirely sure if that would be possible, but definitely a really good day for Haas if they can score these points, as Terence has had a podium in Singapore and now looking to try and make it that top spot that they were looking for in the lights last time around. And now it's in the rain, in the day, but in the rain. Sir Maxon 1.2, 1.3 seconds, 19 laps, now on to 20 laps of this race. That could be a safety car. Rare Winter makes a mistake on the exit. They get front wing damage, but no safety car will be deployed, despite being right on track right there. That is really unfortunate for Rare Winter, because they were going to try and look at making it interesting, of course. Looking to try and have a look at a podium maybe, but Breda's Call wasn't going to make it easy for their teammate, or easy for the Red Bull, of course, because their teammate is up ahead of them. It is going to be Rare Winter into the pit lane, and I think that will be their race done, and it will be. It's a shame. It is a shame. they could have scored some guaranteed points, but it's not going to go that way. And now Terence will be able to definitely have a look at overtaking, and actually is very likely to pass Red Bull in the Teams Championship with Haas and make it a P3, which would be absolutely incredible. In the meantime, Tom Robb goes off the circuit and cuts the corner. P5 for them at the moment. That's not ideal at all. It is a 5-second time penalty immediately, or was that a 10-second? I don't quite know. Did they speed into the pit lane earlier on? I'm not entirely sure what just happened there. What penalty they got. It's Jericho Willis who just moves to the inside slightly right there of the Ferrari car, and then they allow things to go the way they are. Brothers called 3.6 seconds behind, or 3.6 seconds behind. I don't quite know what happened to them, but they're definitely going to find it very difficult to pass their teammate despite being on the better tyres at this point in the race. It should be the better tyre. That being said, Verth isn't, well, I was going to say isn't that far away. They have started to drop a lot more now. That's Sir Max on into the lead of the Grand Prix for the first time. It is Charlie in P3. I say for the lead, to the lead for the first time since the pit stops. It's Charlie in P3 ahead of Verth, just ahead of Verth, but that's a 4-second gap, 4.5 second gap that Verth has to Terence. An absolute disaster strategy-wise, but they're still holding on and doing what they need to do. They're in it to win it still. If something was to happen, then they would be right there to take it, and they're doing what they need for the championship, of course. 2 points difference it could be to them as well. They've just got to stay in it, and it's going to help them regardless of where they finish today. Charlie sits in that P3 spot at the moment, pulling Verth along with them. And Terence sits behind Sir Maxon. Sir Maxon pulling Terence along with them as well. There's 2 trains. There's 3 trains with Tom Robb ahead of Jericho Willis. So we've currently got a higher tier driver followed by a current tier driver, a higher tier, a current tier, a higher tier, and a current tier. And then another current tier of Brothers Call, who's unfortunately not got a duo, but we've got 3 duos at the moment out on track, with Sir Maxon taking the fastest lap and really trying to push Terence with them. So Terence has got to work pretty hard to stay with Sir Maxon, but they've done it so far, and they are definitely trying to make it work. Let's look at the fastest laps of the race so far, if we can. The fastest laps, 29.7 for Rare Winter, 29.4 for Brothers Cool. We got a 29.9 for Jericho Willis, a 29.4 for Verth, and it is going to be Terence with a 28.9. So Terence on an absolute masterclass right now and looking to try and make it a win and a fastest lap. That would be absolutely brilliant. That being said, Brothers Call is going to try and take that away as they're looking to go for the fastest lap on lap 22 out of 27. It's Terence with a 3-second time penalty in the meantime. As Brothers Call, I wanted to check if they are damaged, but we didn't get there in time. Terence holding on to the back of Sir Maxon, maybe has a bit of a blocked view, and that does mean that they end up getting a time penalty. They just couldn't see the track limits maybe ahead of them. I don't quite know, or they were trying to push to stay with the Racing Bull car in front. And now 1.5 seconds. They do have a 3 seconds to their name, but currently that gap is still just over 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds almost. Yeah, it's a difficult one. Is that more 5 seconds actually, I think, if I really look at that. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. My maths is completely wrong right there. Currently, Terence is still clearly on track to make it a P1 ahead of Verth on the current tier drivers, of course, but we'll see if that is the case by the end of this Grand Prix. So Maxon looking to try and do it again for a second weekend in a row before the break as we head to Imola. And it would be a good way to finish off the weekend, of course, in LSI. Not what they wanted yesterday, but they're going to get a bit of redemption from last season and go from P2 to P1. Last season there was a gap of 0.332 seconds to the line where Frantic won that race, so Max on P2 after getting that pole time, and then we had Terence in P3 of the fastest lap. Then it was Jericho Willis of P4 after a 3-second time penalty, put them behind the driver from Hong Kong, who now leads the way for the current tier drivers. And Jericho Willis this time on cue to get, or on target to get that P3, despite the strategy difficulties that they have had so far. Brett is cool, looking at the fastest lap, a 29.4. They've got to push a little bit more if they want to get to Terence. They would have to go 5 tenths, 6 tenths a lap quicker effectively right now. They can definitely do it now these tyres are getting warmed up for them, and I assume that will be happening within a couple of laps time, if not in a couple of corners time. Now Terence 2.1 seconds behind Samaxon. He doesn't need to worry about Samaxon. Charlie's actually ended up losing time. I say losing time, that's the gap to the leader. They actually gained time, and they are trying to make progress to make it a 1-2 for the higher tier drivers. The two Polish drivers, this time instead of Charlie in P1 and Samaxon P2 as we saw yesterday, it would be Samaxon P1 and Charlie P2. But we'll see if that's the case in a few laps time. Regardless, for Terence, they don't mind. They just want to stay ahead of Verf, and they're currently on cue to do it, but they do need to make sure that they keep composed and they don't repeat what happened last time in Singapore. They have everything in their hands to make it their second career victory. They won in Spa, and they could win in Monza. That would be a hell of a sentence right here for Terence, and I will say that if I can remember to do so, that would be an incredible scene right there. Could we see it? Seasons apart, but definitely worth the wait, worth the effort, and worth it with the conditions that they've had to drive through. What a race it would be to win. What a race. We've got Charlie, who is pushing the limits to try and get that position, and we'll hopefully see them get involved. Will they be able to do it? I don't quite know. Terence is probably not going to fight it hard if they do try and gain, because there is literally no reason to fight at that point. Charlie's not got too much to catch, and they will be good to go. Jericho Willis sits in P6. They're going to be frustrated with the situation, I'm sure. After a brilliant performance yesterday, looking confident for this race, but it just hasn't come together, and there's not really an answer for it other than that they weren't prepared for the wet conditions. Possibly that could be the case. That would be the obvious case. It's a very difficult condition to be driving in, and considering their strategy, they've done a brilliant job. And I think with the strategy that they've had, it's really not done justice on what they have done today. Neither for Verf. They deserve a lot more, but it's the way it goes. Whether it was technical faults or if it was their own choice by accident, maybe, I don't quite know. But it's the way it goes, and Terence has managed to stay away from that. And Brett is cool as well, who's going for that fastest lap. They're going purple in that first sector, and they do not currently have the fastest lap ahead of Terence, so they need to find a little bit more time, and they will be able to do so, but they're about 2 hundredths away from that current fastest lap, more or less. That's going to be Charlie going for it on Terence into turn 1. Terence is going to back way off. They're now on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix to try and make it a victory. It would be awesome if they could do it, and they don't need to fight at this point. It is a higher tier driver 1-2 right now with Samaxon and Charlie. P1, P2, Racing Bull and Williams. It's going to be Brett is cool though, who's going to try and go for that fastest lap, and we will go on board as they go round the final corner to try and make it work. A bit of a slip on the rear. Is it still going to be enough though as they cross the line? It's going to be a 28.5, and that will definitely be the fastest lap point going to Brett is cool. Brilliant stuff right there for them. They'll get that extra point to the team's championship with McLaren, who try and extend their way in this championship, and they will do so with a P3 and a P4. They will get 26 points, I believe, if I'm correct in saying. Yes, 26 points. 27 points, my bad, with the fastest lap, of course. But it's going to be Terence with 20 points to gain massively and make it a P3 in the team's championship. they would also be gaining hugely on rare winter, and they will be able to get to P4 in the Drivers' Championship as well. They've got one final lap to do this, and they follow on nicely behind Charlie at the moment, 9 seconds ahead of their next rival, Verf, who got pole once again, but this time will not be able to win. As in Singapore, it's not going to go their way. Tom Robb, P5, Jericho Willis, P6. They've just got to get to the end of the Grand Prix, and Brothers Core has already secured that fastest lap point. Now we come to the final sector of the Grand Prix, and we do have to give our hats off to the higher tier drivers as well. Samaxon has driven a brilliant race, made it work nicely, and they will come home to take the victory for the overall race. Charlie will make it a P2 for the overall race. But as Terence backs off to try and secure it, to bring it home, sliding out the final corner, Terence will win once again in LSI. They win in Spa and they win in Monza. Terence is victorious. It's been a while, but they get there and they deserve that massively. Verf is in P2 in the end after a difficult race. They bring it home. It's gonna be Jericho Willis to P3 for the current tier drivers, Tom Robb in P6, and Bredders Cool will finish this Grand Prix. These are your race winners, Samaxon, but most importantly, it is Terence. He has done it. Absolutely incredible. Well done. Wow. Wow. What a race. You don't need that many drivers to make it a good one. Close racing, it can be very good and you really do want it, but sometimes it's anticipation and it's intensity that will bring a race alive, and Terence has definitely been through that one. Absolutely incredible. We'll get to hear from them in a few moments' time. Do not miss that one. It will be a brilliant interview. That is the podium right there. Samaxon, Charlie, and Terence in P3. We go for the result. It's going to be Samaxon with the fastest lap in P1, Charlie P2, Terence wins for the current tier drivers, then it's Verf, Jericho Willis, Tom Robb, Bredders Cool, and DNFing earlier on was Rare Winter and Zora. We go through the race director just in case, as we might need to do so around a circuit like this, and we will do so on the pit stops as well. Export those session results. Not entirely sure if they work too much at this point, but we'll be back for the post-race interviews and we'll hear from a few of these drivers. Absolutely awesome. Hello everyone, welcome to the post-race interviews of the Italian Grand Prix. That was pretty crazy with the weather that we've just witnessed. Absolutely awesome driving from Terence there and Sir Maxon, of course. We start with Jericho. Jericho, what happened there with the pit stops? I don't know, was that a bug or was that just maybe not really knowing what to do right there?
What did you guys see? So I can know what happened.
Sorry, with the pit stops and you were on the wet tyres, of course.
Oh, instead of going to the inters, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was an oversight on my side. I wasn't thinking too clearly. So yeah, just another one of those mistakes. So yeah, that was a good way to summarize my race. I think on the first stint, I was doing okay. My wet weather pace is never very good, so when I was, with the pack at the end of the first stint, I was pretty happy with that. But like you said, the mistake with the pit stops, not going to the inters, that would have made a big difference. And from there, it was just kind of a struggle to have any pace, and did the best we could, and pushed at the end to try to get fastest lap. I didn't know how far out of reach it was, but on the wrong tire, it was pretty far out of reach. But it looked like it was really close to Verth's fastest lap on the same tire, so that was a little bit of satisfaction. But yeah, the tire choice in the end took away a chance of being competitive near the end. But congratulations to Terence. He had great pace and had a good race. And same with Verth. He did a really good job, especially on those tires. He was able to pull out a gap and hold it. Mm-hmm. And thanks to all the higher tier guys racing nice and clean. And didn't really challenge any of those guys. Thought maybe I could use their pace a little bit to pull me along, and that helped a little bit with Tom Robb. But overall, it was a frustrating race. But happy to get through it without a big deficit of points to the other guys. So that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a positive for you is that Terence won over Verth, so the points difference is a lot less. You are still 3 points in the lead of the championship at the moment with the drivers. Imola, it's a very different circuit. Do you think you can do well there?
Hopefully. I'm not. I haven't done a lot of racing there, so we'll see how quickly I can get up to speed. We do have the week break, so we'll have time to get work on things there. But are we 100% confident that we are going to race that circuit?
Not yet, but we've got time.
Okay.
So in the next couple of days, we'll hopefully confirm that.
Okay, good. Yeah, so. Yeah, actually, I hear people talk about the track limits there, and I definitely understand that. However, if I get into a groove of that being my main concentration of the race, I tend to do well with that. So if it does come down to track limits, then maybe we can do well, especially if there's a safety car near the end and it bunches everybody up, and you've got a penalty advantage at the end. That can definitely work out, even if you don't have outright pace, because the guys with outright paces do pick up a lot of penalties in a track like that, because if you're pushing, that's what'll happen. So we'll see. It's a fun track. It's a good layout, and so I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Jericho. Still good points on the table, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
And we move on straight to Tom, because Sir Maxon's not doing an interview either, so we'll go straight to Tom. Hopefully you don't mind that, Tom. Wet conditions, not great, of course. They're pretty difficult to deal with. You didn't have the same experience as the other drivers did, of course, yesterday, as you didn't race, but good to see you here in Monza. How was that?
Yeah, first of all, I freaking hate the rain. My entire pace today was consisting of 4 major factors. First of all, by atrocious rain pace overall. Then, because I knew I won't race yesterday, I didn't put in any practice for any of the conditions. then the complete track limit chaos. For half of my track limits, I actually was on track with at least 2 tires, I would say, from my perspective. So I assume that is some knowledge I could have needed from practicing or driving yesterday, which is really unlucky. And then the first stint, I felt like I had better pace than Brett and Rare Winter, especially through the middle sector. But I would think they had a dry setup on. I had no chance catching them on the straights. So that was also not really fun because I just wanted to keep it clean on the track, and didn't wanted to do any moves, so I lost some time. And actually another factor, I had no rain setup for Monza. So as soon as I saw the weather report, I just went internet quick search, trying to use the first rain setup I found, and that needed like 5 to 10 laps until I completely figured it out and felt quite confident. I feel like later on I could somewhat match the pace of at least Charlie, just being 2-3 tenths of him, which made me quite happy. But yeah, I hate rain. I love Monza. Still doesn't help. That's all.
Yeah, it's a shame that your favourite circuit has been plagued by that, but still, it's good to see you at least in one of the races here around this circuit. Imola, whether we race there or not, do you like that circuit?
Nope. Can I drive Monza instead?
yeah, we'll just we'll let you do that
Like
one.
everybody can drive their own race, and I just do my own server, one race of Monza, comparing times in the end.
Yeah, we'll compare the times in the end and give you some points. Yeah, it's a shame, but yeah. Thank you very much, Tom. Really good to see you today, and we'll see you next time. And we move on to your race winner, Terence. Absolutely incredible. 33 races ago, you won in Spa. Now you do win in Monza. I know that sounds cringe because I've just said the line, but you've done it. Absolutely incredible stuff right there. You just seem to come alive. What was that you found today?
Nothing. Maybe because I'm sick, so I put my throttle pretty light, which is good for rain. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not feeling well at my physical conditions, but yeah, I find very difficult to turn my wheel, but or into wet, it comes to not a huge disadvantage, and also I don't got a wet setup, but I just turned up a little bit wings and turn down a little bit on throttle. What is called? I forgot.
On throttle differential.
Yeah, differential. So yeah, it's very difficult because once the dry line appear, the real wet is just overheating. I tried to went off the racing line to get some water to cool it down, but that is not huge efficiency. So, but my race engineer just told that, oh, British Scoot is going fast in Inter, so go in Inter, please. Okay, then I go for Inter, and I don't know if they've gone a wrong tire in yeah, I don't know if did Firth actually wants Inter, but didn't do it on in time. But if he pits on Inters, I think I couldn't win today.
But
So
still,
it's
you
kind
had
of-
good pace. I think you should be happy with that.
Yeah, in a not wet purposed setup, I think it's pretty good. But actually, I got I think 3 to 4 mistakes that cost me a little bit of time, and I have to correct it. If yeah, it's difficult on wet always, but yeah, I'm happy with today's result.
Yeah, well, it's late, you're ill, it was raining, you've still managed to do it. Really, really well done. I know it's difficult to celebrate and it's difficult to be happy with the situation, but you've done a really, really good job. So I hope that you can be happy. You've taken victory once again on LSI. Imola, I'll try and keep it short. Do you like that circuit?
No, I
Fair
hate
enough.
the yeah, the chicane, the curb is pretty disaster. So I hate that, but I would try my best to keep it maybe close to the podium or even in the podium. But it's a tough circuit to race.
It is. But that is a podium in Singapore and a win in Italy. Really well done, Terence. Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's been it for the post-race interviews. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time, potentially for Imola. If not, we'll see you next week for some lobbies. Thank you very much again, and bye-bye.